The first shots cracked through the dawn mist, shattering the fragile calm of the desert canyon. Dust swirled around broken walls and jagged rocks, stinging the eyes and lungs, yet she moved like a shadow, silent and deliberate. Her hands were steady, her breathing measured, but her heart thudded with the rhythm of a storm. The rifle in her arms jammed mid-fire, metal refusing to obey her commands, and for a fraction of a second, the world seemed to tilt. Beside her, a Marine's eyes met hers, sharp, urgent, and burdened with a silent plea. Without a word, he slid his rifle into her grip, metal cold, barrel rough against her palms, but loaded and ready. The ambush had been meticulously planned. Every step, every shadow, every glint of sun on sand seemed to betray her position. She knew the danger was immediate, that hesitation meant death. Yet she didn't flinch. She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment settle into her bones, and in seconds, 5 targets fell with a precision that seemed impossible. It wasn't luck. It wasn't reaction. It was instinct, honed through years of service, sacrifice, and relentless training. Every muscle memory, every sleepless night, every loss of a comrade had prepared her for this singular, terrifying instant. Wherever you're watching today, take a moment, comment below where you are. Because this story will take you through a journey of courage, honor, and the unshakable strength of a silent hero. And before we begin, please subscribe to this channel for stories that honor the ones who move in silence yet change the course of fate. Her name was Alina Ward, though very few outside her unit ever knew it. She carried the quiet weight of recognition unearned and respect withheld. From the first day she enlisted, she had been underestimated, too small, too young, too gentle to survive the grueling drills and the unforgiving heat of training fields. Yet every morning, she arrived before sunrise, pushing her body, testing her limits, letting nothing, neither doubt nor derision, deter her. Alina's backstory was stitched with sacrifice. Born in a small coastal town, the smell of salt and seaweed was a constant companion, mingled with the distant echo of foghorns and gull cries. Her father, a fisherman with hands like weathered oak, had taught her the value of precision, patience, and endurance. Her mother, a nurse, had instilled empathy, the understanding that even the smallest act of care could ripple across a lifetime. When the military had called, Alina had answered with the certainty of someone seeking both purpose and absolution. She carried with her the memory of her younger brother, lost in an accident that left her family shattered and silent in grief. She trained not to escape the past, but to armor herself against the fragility of life she had learned too early. The scent of gunpowder, the metallic tang of ammunition, and the tension of loaded rifles became her sanctuary, a place where skill mattered more than circumstance. Her first deployment had been to a desert ravaged by endless conflict. Sand that burned like fire against her boots, wind that cut through layers of fabric, the weight of a helmet pressing against her temples. Every detail became part of her rhythm. Comrades fell around her, some with cries lost to the roar of battle, others in silence, leaving ghost-shaped voids in her memory. Yet she adapted. She memorized every crack in the walls, every crevice in the canyon, every shadow that might conceal danger. Alina learned the language of survival in silence. She could read the tension in a Marine's shoulders, the hesitation in a local's gait, the subtle click of a weapon being cocked. These were lessons no training manual could teach. She moved like she belonged to both worlds, the battlefield and the space between life and death, her decisions measured, deliberate, and absolute. But even with this prowess, recognition was a scarce commodity. Orders were given in cold, bureaucratic tones, valor often went unacknowledged, and in public, her achievements were invisible. The world, she realized, measured heroism by headlines and medals, not by quiet mastery under fire. Yet Alina's pride was not performative. It was forged in the crucible of duty, in the silence after the chaos, in moments when she could hear her heartbeat over the noise of battle. The ambush that morning was a test unlike any she had faced. Intelligence had been sketchy, enemy positions were unpredictable, and a squad had been compromised earlier that week. The canyon's walls created deadly echoes, every movement amplified, every shadow a potential threat. She could smell the acrid tang of spent gunpowder, and sweat mingled with fear. Sand clung to her skin, gritty and burning, a tactile reminder that survival required focus sharper than pain. When the first shots rang out, Alina's reflexes were instantaneous. She had trained for ambush scenarios countless times, Yet nothing in simulation captured the rush of adrenaline as the rifle jammed, the metallic clank threatening to betray her position. She glimpsed the Marine at her side, understanding and urgency etched into every line of his body, and in that silent exchange, they synchronized. Without hesitation, the replacement rifle slid into her hands. In those moments, Elena's mind emptied of doubt, fear, or hesitation. Muscle memory took over, each target fell with lethal precision, her senses expanded to include every detail, dust stirred by footsteps, the faint glint of a blade, the slight rise and fall of breathing. 5 adversaries neutralized in seconds, not out of arrogance, but necessity. Survival demanded focus, and focus demanded silence. This opening sequence set the stage not only for the battle outside, but for the internal conflict within Elena. The world around her underestimated her, doubted her, and left her in situations where silence became both her shield and her weapon. Yet beneath the calm exterior was a storm of moral tension, an understanding that heroism often existed in unrecognized corners, in moments unseen, in the pause between life and death. Even now, standing in the aftermath, the weight of responsibility pressed against her chest. The canyon lay littered with the remnants of the ambush, spent shells, upturned rocks, the faint smell of blood mingled with sand. But no one outside her unit would understand the choices made in those seconds. They would not see the calculation, the split-second decisions that saved lives and exacted justice with surgical precision. Elena's story, like so many silent heroes, was not written for accolades. It was a testament to unseen bravery, to moments where dignity and honor were the only currency that mattered. And in the coming moments, as the dust settled and the canyon quieted, she would confront challenges that tested not only her skill but her integrity, her ability to navigate a world where recognition was scarce, and silence was both a weapon and a necessity. The sun had risen higher, casting jagged shadows across the canyon floor, yet the morning's light offered no comfort. Dust still hung in the air, thick and gritty, clinging to sweat, slicked skin and mingling with the sharp tang of gunmetal and gunpowder. Elena moved carefully, each step deliberate, scanning the terrain as though the rocks themselves might conceal danger. Around her, silence pressed in. No cheers, no relief, only the faint shifting of sand and the occasional flutter of a distant bird. Her squad had survived, though barely. They had come under fire without warning, ambushed by adversaries who had studied the terrain, calculated their approach, and exploited every weakness. And yet, while her actions had saved lives, recognition was a phantom. Orders came through radios with clipped voices, devoid of praise. Reports would list casualties, equipment, and operational success, but her name would be absent. Elena's silence was her shield. She had learned that speaking up often drew unnecessary attention, sometimes ire. It had happened before, in training, in missions where discipline was valued over initiative. Her calm precision, her uncanny ability to read situations and act decisively, often made superiors uneasy. To them, unpredictability was a threat. To her, it was survival. She felt the weight of being invisible. Even those she saved, Marines who owed their lives to her skill, would not publicly acknowledge her deeds. In the field, they respected her. In reports and ceremonies, she remained a ghost. It was a quiet injustice, a systemic blindness that seemed incapable of recognizing silent competence. As they moved along the canyon path, Elena's eyes caught subtle cues that told her all she needed to know. A slight disturbance in the sand, a shadow that lingered longer than it should, the faint reflection of sunlight off a metallic object tucked behind a rock. Her mind cataloged every detail, every possibility, every potential threat. Each sense was heightened, every muscle coiled in readiness. Yet outwardly, she remained composed, almost detached, the calm eye in the center of a storm no one else could see. A small group of local operatives approached, ostensibly to assist with clearing the area. Their uniforms were clean, their movements practiced, but Elena's instincts whispered caution. There was an arrogance in their posture, a subtle condescension. They spoke quickly in a language she understood well enough, using polite tones to mask thinly veiled doubt. She could feel it, the unspoken question whether this woman, small in stature, but immense in skill, truly belonged here. Her unit moved ahead, but Elena lingered, scanning the perimeter. She noticed one operative fumbling with equipment, a hand brushing against the barrel of a rifle too casually. Her gut tightened. Something was off. Without drawing attention, she signaled subtly to the Marine beside her, the one who had handed her the jammed rifle. He nodded, understanding her silent warning. They had trained together long enough to communicate without words. The tension in the air thickened. Alina could almost feel the canyon itself pressing down, walls narrowing, sand grinding against sand, as if the earth conspired with the unseen adversaries. Every instinct screamed vigilance, every nerve stretched taut. She moved with deliberate steps, silent but resolute, aware that the slightest miscalculation could trigger catastrophe. This was more than a physical challenge. It was moral and psychological. The disrespect she faced, the underestimation, was not personal, it was systemic. It was embedded in the hierarchy, in the assumptions about who could act decisively, who deserved recognition, and who was considered expendable. Alina had faced this before, but each encounter left its mark, a subtle erosion of faith and fairness. Yet she refused to let it define her. Her response was silence, observation, and readiness. She knew that the moment to act would come, and when it did, every action would speak louder than any accolade could. Her honor was private, but it was absolute. Hours passed in this tension-filled rhythm. Sun climbed, shadows shifted, and Alina's patience was tested. The operatives' movements grew more conspicuous, the subtle malice in their gestures sharpening. Finally, a misstep, a rifle accidentally tipped, a trigger brushing against metal. Alina acted without hesitation. Her hand gripped the replacement rifle tightly, fingers steady. The operative froze, realization dawning too late. 5 seconds, she thought. 5 seconds is all I need. The world contracted to the precise motion of her body, the alignment of her eyes with the target, the weight of the rifle against her shoulder. Muscle memory, honed over years of discipline and sacrifice, guided her movements. Every shot landed with unerring accuracy. In seconds, the threat was neutralized, the danger removed, the canyon returning to uneasy silence. No one cheered. No one acknowledged the act. It was done swiftly, efficiently, silently. Because that was the way Alina had always operated. She had learned that the world often refused to honor quiet heroism, that society measured value by noise rather than effectiveness. But she did not flinch. She had chosen this path deliberately, knowing that the ultimate power of her actions lay in their necessity, not their recognition. Later, when the reports reached higher command, her unit's success was noted. The ambush was prevented, lives were saved, and operational objectives were met. Yet her name remained absent from the bullet points, the memos, the official accounts. Some would have been frustrated, resentful. Others might have questioned whether their efforts were truly invisible. But Alina's response was internal, a quiet affirmation. Honor was not performed for applause, and heroism did not require an audience. She reflected briefly on the Marine who had trusted her with his rifle, his unspoken confidence in her skill. Silent trust, she thought, is the strongest bond. Their eyes had met in that fleeting instant, conveying understanding and reliance that words could never capture. It was a reminder that recognition came not from ceremony, but from shared experience, from lives saved, from moments when action eclipsed noise. Even in the aftermath, Alina moved with care, checking her surroundings, attending to the wounded, ensuring the integrity of their position. Every decision, every subtle movement, was informed by experience, empathy, and the unshakable commitment to protect life, even when it demanded deadly precision. And yet, the moral tension lingered. She sensed the skepticism of those watching from a distance, the invisible weight of bureaucratic doubt, the assumption that her calmness equated to passivity. These judgments were familiar, recurring specters that shadowed her entire career. They were reminders of the systemic injustice she had navigated daily, an unspoken challenge that tested not her skill, but her resolve, patience, and dignity. Alina's mind wandered briefly to the words of her father, long gone now, whose calloused hands had taught her precision, and to her mother, whose quiet strength had taught her empathy. Measure your worth not by the eyes of strangers, she remembered them saying, but by the lives you touch, the integrity you uphold, and the courage you carry silently. These words anchored her. She understood that while recognition might be delayed, incomplete, or even denied, the impact of her actions resonated beyond the narrow confines of immediate observation. Every life preserved, every threat neutralized, every moment of disciplined calm in the midst of chaos was an enduring testament to unseen heroism. The canyon seemed to exhale with her, the oppressive heat giving way to a subtle breeze. Alina paused for a moment, feeling the texture of sand beneath her fingertips, the rough edges of stone against her palm, the warmth of sun on sweat-soaked skin. She was alone in the sense that the world outside would never fully grasp her deeds, yet not alone in the quiet communion of her own values, instincts, and unwavering honor. And then, faintly, almost imperceptibly, a hint of acknowledgement began to surface, not from reports, not from medals, but from the smallest gestures, a nod of respect from a comrade, the subtle adjustment of a uniform sleeve, as if to signal solidarity, the quiet step taken beside her, trusting her decisions without question. It was the slow, silent recognition of those who truly understood that heroism was not performative, it was precise, steadfast, and often invisible. The canyon lay quiet, deceptively calm. Dust still spiraled in the sunlight, glittering like fine gold in the air, but beneath that serene veil, Elena's instincts hummed with awareness. The ambush had been thwarted, 5 threats eliminated in seconds, yet the danger had not entirely passed. She knew the enemy adapted quickly, and she knew her actions, swift and precise, had left ripples far beyond her immediate surroundings. And then it began. The subtle shift that would redefine the battlefield and her own place within it. At first, it was almost imperceptible. The Marine who had lent her the jammed rifle glanced at her, eyes wide with a mix of relief and awe, his respect unspoken but unmistakable. Then, the other members of her squad, previously silent and tense, began to move with her rhythm, their reliance on her instincts no longer tentative, but unquestionable. The power shift was not loud. It was not public. It was invisible, almost sacred, a quiet acknowledgement that Elena's skill, composure, and courage commanded authority not granted by rank or ceremony, but by undeniable action. In that instant, she was no longer just another soldier in the field. She was the axis around which survival pivoted, the silent force whose decisions dictated life or death. As the squad advanced, Elena's mind remained alert, cataloging every sound, every shadow, every hint of movement in the canyon. The faint whisper of sand under a boot, the subtle flare of sunlight on metal. These were not mere details, they were signals, guiding her strategy and ensuring no further threats could exploit weakness. Every step she took was measured, deliberate, a choreography of survival honed over years of discipline and sacrifice. Then came the moment of undeniable moral justice. A group of high-ranking officers arrived to assess the ambush aftermath. Their eyes, previously dismissive in reports, now followed Elena's every move with cautious attention. They could not ignore her role, nor the efficiency with which she had neutralized the threats. Their words were carefully measured, laced with reluctant acknowledgement. Precision remarkable, one officer murmured, almost to himself. Another nodded, their posture subtly shifting from formal authority to cautious deference. Elena did not smile, did not seek praise. She remained silent, letting her actions carry the weight of recognition. Her honor, her power, was self-contained, absolute, and untouchable by ceremony or accolade. The iconic lines that had long simmered in her heart found their voice, not in speech, but in the aura of her presence. Silence is not surrender. It is strategy. It is strength. Courage does not need applause, it only demands clarity of purpose. Honor exists in the moments unseen, in decisions made when no one is watching. These words were felt, not spoken aloud, echoing in the minds of those who had witnessed her in action. They could sense the truth in them. Elena's unshakable dignity was a force unto itself, a moral reckoning for those who underestimated her. But the climax was not solely about recognition. It was about justice, about the equilibrium restored through skill and calm decisiveness. Enemy forces, previously confident in their ambush, now retreated, disrupted not by noise or rhetoric, but by the silent, precise orchestration of Elena's response. 5 targets neutralized, lives preserved, and the integrity of the unit maintained. This was victory distilled to its purest, most morally satisfying form. As the squad regrouped, Elena allowed herself a fleeting glance at the canyon walls. The sun had shifted, casting long shadows that stretched like protective arms over the landscape. Dust settled, and for the first time since dawn, the air felt almost gentle, carrying with it the faint, metallic scent of spent ammunition and the earthy perfume of disturbed sand. The battlefield had been tamed not by chaos but by calm, not by volume but by vigilance. The Marine who had trusted her with the jammed rifle finally spoke, his voice low and reverent. You saved us all." Again, Elena nodded, acknowledging the sentiment without fanfare. She did not need their words to validate her courage. She needed only to know that the lives entrusted to her had been preserved. In that silent acknowledgement lay the culmination of her power. The moral victory that required no medals, no headlines, no public acclaim. Even as higher command began formal reports and debriefings, Alina's silent triumph radiated outward. Those who had doubted her, who had measured heroism by appearances, now moved with subtle deference. Bystanders in the field, civilians who had glimpsed the precision of her movements, felt a surge of respect impossible to ignore. The ambush had been more than a tactical scenario. It had become a testament to the strength of unseen heroism, the power of silent resolve, and the efficacy of skill tempered with discipline. The final moments of the story were cinematic in their own right. The squad paused at the edge of the canyon, sun low on the horizon, painting the rugged cliffs with amber light. Marines, operatives, and even distant observers instinctively straightened, a silent, collective act of respect. Alina's posture remained calm, unassuming, yet every line of her body conveyed mastery, resolve, and unwavering honor. Her eyes lingered on the horizon. The canyon stretched before her like a map of past trials and future possibilities. She felt the weight of the morning's events settle into a quiet satisfaction. Justice had been delivered, not through words, not through accolades, but through decisive, moral action. She had proven, once again, that courage and skill carried their own authority, independent of recognition or approval. As the sun dipped further, casting golden trails across the canyon floor, Alina allowed herself one thought, a reflection of the ethos that had guided her entire career. Valor is a quiet river. It does not roar. It flows unseen, shaping the land through which it passes, leaving life in its wake. And in that river, she found herself anchored in principles, tempered by experience, and unshakable in the knowledge that her actions, though silent, resonated beyond the canyon walls. The final image was not of chaos or conflict, but of subtle triumph. Soldiers moved with renewed confidence, trusting the rhythm Alina had set. The Marine who had handed her the jammed rifle walked beside her, his respect unspoken but complete. The canyon seemed to exhale in relief, as if acknowledging that the unseen heroism of one determined individual had altered the course of events for everyone. In this quiet victory, Alina's story reached its satisfying resolution. Moral tension had been restored, injustice tempered by skill, and silent heroism illuminated in a way that required no audience beyond those who understood the gravity of her actions. It was a testament to the unseen battles fought every day, the courage displayed without fanfare, and the enduring power of honor carried silently. The canyon had quieted. The echoes of gunfire, the metallic clang of rifles, and the tense rhythm of life and death moments had faded into a stillness that seemed almost sacred. Dust settled in lazy spirals, the sun casting long, molten shadows across jagged stone. In that quiet, Alina walked slowly, letting the weight of her actions settle into her bones. Her body was exhausted, every muscle taut and strained, yet her mind was alive with clarity. She understood what had just occurred. Not the headlines that might someday appear in official reports, not the fleeting nods from peers, but the profound significance of choices made in silence. Every life preserved, every decision executed with precision, every threat neutralized without fanfare, these were the true measures of heroism. She thought of the Marine who had trusted her with the jammed rifle, the bond forged in a fraction of a second, yet stronger than words could convey. That trust had been returned tenfold, not in applause or recognition, but in the lives saved, in the stability of the unit, in the unspoken certainty that in moments of crisis, skill and honor would prevail. Alina reflected on the moral lessons etched into the fabric of the day. Heroism was rarely loud. Courage was not measured by applause or medals. True strength, the kind that endured beyond a single battlefield or report, was quiet, deliberate, and often unseen. In the face of systemic underestimation, in the shadow of bureaucratic blindness, she had acted with clarity and purpose, affirming that honor belonged not to the observer, but to the door. She remembered the first time she had understood this truth, years earlier. In training fields, sun, bleached and merciless. Her instructors, skeptical of her ability, had watched her every move with doubt. Yet when the moment came to act, to navigate obstacles, to make split-second decisions with lives at stake, her performance spoke with a precision that rendered doubt irrelevant. That day had become a guiding principle. Action is the language of integrity. Recognition is secondary, sometimes irrelevant, but never essential. The canyon, still and silent now, seemed to echo her thoughts. Rocks that had concealed threats earlier now stood as silent witnesses. Sand that had burned against her skin now felt like grains of affirmation, a tactile reminder that courage leaves an imprint, even when invisible. Every breath she took carried the scent of dust, sweat, and spent gunpowder, mingling with the faint, earthy aroma of disturbed soil, a sensory tapestry marking the cost and the reward of silent heroism. She paused at a jagged outcrop, the horizon stretched wide and golden before her. The canyon's vastness reflected the enormity of the invisible battles fought every day, not just on deserts, canyons, and war zones, but in moments of quiet bravery that never make it to reports or headlines. Elena's story was a reminder that every act of courage, every decision made under pressure, ripples outward, shaping outcomes in ways the world often fails to acknowledge. Her gaze lingered on the distant mountains, their peaks sharp against the amber sky. In them she saw a metaphor for her own journey, obstacles scaled, dangers navigated, heights reached through perseverance and skill rather than recognition. And she understood fully that the true reward of her actions was not applause, but integrity, the unshakable satisfaction that she had done right, acted decisively, and protected life when it mattered most. For viewers watching, the lesson was clear. Heroism is rarely performative. It is found in moments of necessity, in decisions made with precision and honor, and in courage exercised quietly, without expectation of reward. Elena's story illustrated this truth with every fiber of her being, every heartbeat that had guided rifle, body, and mind through ambush and danger. And yet, stories like hers have a power beyond the battlefield. They inspire reflection, empathy, and moral awareness. They remind us that strength comes not from recognition, but from resilience, that courage is measured not by visibility, but by the impact of action. They urge us to notice the unseen battles around us, the silent heroes who preserve safety, honor, and dignity without expectation of applause. Elena's reflection deepened as she thought of her family, the lessons from her father about precision and patience, the empathy instilled by her mother, the memory of her brother whose absence had shaped her understanding of fragility and responsibility. In that blend of memory and experience, she found the foundation of her calm decisiveness, skill informed by wisdom, courage tempered by empathy, and honor preserved by integrity. As the canyon's shadows lengthened, she allowed herself one final thought. The quietest acts are often the strongest. The unseen hands hold the world steady, and the silent warriors shape the lives of countless others, even when no one knows their names. She turned back to her squad, their movements measured and coordinated, subtly guided by her presence. A nod of respect passed between her and the Marine whose trust had been pivotal that morning. It was acknowledgement enough, a confirmation that silent heroism had been witnessed, understood, and honored in its purest form. For those watching today, wherever you are, consider the silent heroes in your own lives. Think of the nurses, the soldiers, the firefighters, the parents, the friends, the colleagues who act decisively, courageously, and selflessly without seeking recognition. Comment below where you're watching from and share your thoughts about the unsung heroes you know. Their stories matter. Their courage matters. Their silence is their strength. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel to join a community that honors the quiet bravery, the unseen valor, and the resilience that exists in every corner of life. Stories like Elena's remind us that integrity, courage, and skill are timeless, powerful, and profoundly human. As the screen fades from the canyon to a wide shot of the horizon, the golden sunlight casting long shadows and bathing the rugged landscape in warmth, Elena walks slowly, purposeful, unshakable. Every step, every breath, every glance is a testament to the strength that exists beyond applause, beyond recognition, beyond spectacle, a heroism defined by action, guided by honor, and preserved in silence. The canyon, the dust, the golden light, all witness to a story that will linger far beyond this moment. Elena Ward's courage, precision, and unflinching moral compass leave an indelible mark, not in headlines or reports, but in the lives she saved and the integrity she maintained. Her silent heroism echoes in the hearts of those who witness it, inspiring reflection, admiration, and the understanding that true bravery is as much about restraint and precision as it is about action. The story ends not with fanfare, but with a quiet, cinematic dignity, a reminder that the most powerful acts are often the ones carried out with no audience, no expectation, and unwavering resolve.